A very good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to Innerview, a live talk show presented by Dutch Uncles. So let's fasten our seatbelts because we are about to experience a very interesting journey of creating a successful startup. Our guest for today is a pilot and an entrepreneur, Mr. Rajat Jaiswal, co-founder of Wat-A-Burger. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Hello, Kanan. Thanks for the welcome.
So, starting with the first question, how and when did the pilot get bit by the entrepreneur bug?
Flying is a very intriguing job. I've been flying for almost 12 years now. There is a time in your career when you realize that you need to be very secure with what you're doing. So, there are ups and downs in every journey. And similarly, aviation is one of the industries which keep going up and down. So, one of these downturns, I realized it is high time I should be starting something on my own. Also, I saw a lot of successful ventures outside, and I thought we can do this together. And this is something that I can also start. So that's when I started researching into entrepreneurship, started setting up something which I can do on my own. And finally, about 4 years later, I had this venture which we started in 2016.
Okay, so when did you choose the burger as your startup idea? What made you decide on this idea as a business startup?
My main focus was on things which I could successfully pull through. That's number one. And not just that, I wanted to enter into a segment which is kind of recession proof. So if you look at every industry, the food industry amongst them all is the safest. Precisely why? Because it's one of the industries which is running in every scenario. So a simple example would be when somebody is happy, they'd go out to eat. When somebody is sad, they'll go out to eat to cheer them up. If they have some celebration, they'll go to a restaurant and celebrate. So food industry remains as versatile even in the grimmest of circumstances. So my idea was I'll enter into the food segment, but food segment was the main question. So I realized that QSR has a lot of scope. And back in 2015-16, when we actually started this venture, QSR was rapidly growing. The pace was almost 30-35% year on year. But of that, burgers and sandwiches happened to be just about 2-3%. And this was primarily because burgers were always seen as not a mainstream food, but as just a sidekick snack. For for a general Indian clientele, they would consider a burger as an evening snack or a late night food, but not exactly as a mainstream food, not as a main meal. And that was precisely because they would not have Indian flavors in them. They would not connect mayonnaise and bun and a patty as something they can have for dinner or as something they could have for lunch. And this was something that we wanted to change. So at Whataburger, we started making recipes which were Indian flavors fused inside a burger, so that when a person takes a bite, it is not just filling his stomach, it is also filling his appetite for the food that he wanted to have. So, for example, we have something like an aloo achari burger, which would be very similar to a puri with aloo and probably an achar. So it's something which is a staple food for Indians, something which people have been having for a very long time in India. So all our meals, all our burgers are designed around that concept, where we fuse the Indian mainstream food into the form of a burger or a sandwich. And that's how we decided that burger should be one. And other small reasons were that it's easy to scale. So if you want to replicate your model across the country or even outside, it's a simpler setup to scale. The recipes can be streamlined to a single process, and then they can be replicated very easily. So that's why we chose burger as a mainstream food.
Right. So that is a great, interesting approach. But when you design this menu, and when the first set of customers have shared their feedback, or how was the response to your this new idea of fusion of a Indian spices based burger?
I'll tell you a short story. When we started, of course, this was not a very famous brand. It was just a startup, and we had a shop which was just across the road to a very famous Western burger joint. And everybody was of the idea that why are you opening a store which is in front of such a big brand? So it wasn't that we wanted to go head on with them, but there was a very simple ideology there that we already have people who are interested in eating a burger around. We just have to pull them to our store. So the task becomes half easy. And how we started was after running for about a month's time, we did some trials into marketing, and we started doing something which was known as a burger trial. So we would slice a burger into four halves, put some toothpicks around, and ask our team to stand outside, making people who are walking around to taste them. And the simple offer there was that if you like it, you come to the store and order. And if you still don't like your meal with what you have ordered, it is absolutely free and on the house. And we ran this campaign for almost 4.5, 3 months, and there was not one bill that was asked to be reimbursed. So everybody started liking it, and it was just that it was a new surprise for them that okay, we can have a burger now which is with butter chicken inside, which was one of the most popular recipes that we had, the chicken makhani burger. And same was with the wrap. Then we had some burgers which had some kebabs, and people were just fascinated that we can have a kebab now inside a burger. So it was extremely hit, and which is why you can now see that even some of the major brands are now making their focus towards shifting the basic taste and feel of a burger or a Western food into an Indian flavored based product. So we did that well in time, and we did that much ahead of everybody else in the market, and it was a huge success.
Right, that is so wonderful. Now, in your entire journey from the very start, from the ideation to the part when you have such a big brand name across, so in your journey, there must be many challenges or hurdles you might have faced. What
Mhm.
were those?
See, when you're setting up a brand, see, one is if you're running a restaurant. So setting up or running a restaurant has its own set of challenges, of course, which primarily are setting up the manpower, handling your capacity, handling your quality, maintaining consistency in your products and product delivery, managing the brand, making it famous. But when you are making something which is to be scaled to a brand like Whataburger, there are other problems also at hand, which is basically brand adaptation, acceptance of the product as a brand, where you start perceiving Whataburger as a brand. We started with one store only. So from one store to a level where it is seen as a brand was a big walk. And this was our biggest hurdle, how to do this. Because our primary mode of expansion has been franchising, where you select a person who's fit to run a restaurant. We get those kind of people who are of the same ideology as we have, who love food, who want to run their own places, and they want to run a restaurant which has a good setup. So those kind of people, when they're running your store, you want to ensure that they are on the same page as you. So they have to perceive your product as prime and supreme, as something which is a brand. This was the biggest hurdle that we had, because with just one or two outlets, when you start franchising, the first question people ask is that, is this a brand, or can you actually scale to 100 restaurants? And that question had to be answered. So every single deal that we cracked, every single contract that we signed, every single product that we had on board was all done with the concept of a 100 plus stores brand, and that vision we had when we started 5 years ago. So proving that vision to your audience was the main hurdle to us. Slowly and gradually, as we started growing, your post 8 stores, 10 stores, that vision started turning into a reality, and it was an easier walk to explain to people that yes, we can scale. But with one or two stores, the biggest problem was to explain to people that yes, you are capable of scaling to a 100 store brand.
Right, right. So, in this journey, also there might be some people maybe criticizing or bringing you down, or in some or the other way. So, in all such kind of challenges, personal, professional, emotional, what was your mantra which helped you overcome all of this or helped you scale the ladder of success?
See, these are very generic problems. It is not just if you're an entrepreneur setting up a brand or a restaurant. Even if you go for a simple course, if you go for a simple job, if there's anything you want to do on your own, you'll always have people around you who would talk positive, who would talk negative, who would want to give you a genuine advice, but that genuine advice might be pulling you down. So, the primary thing that you have to remember is to keep your focus, because only you and only you know what you really want to achieve. So for others, while this was just a restaurant startup, or I was probably flipping burgers in a restaurant, or selling burgers in a restaurant, or I was just opening another burger joint, for me it was a brand I was building. For me, I was building up a journey which was going to last many stores and many years. So for me, my vision was far ahead of what anybody else could do. So what they were judging me from was what their vision was. And that's when everyone has to remember that if somebody is giving you an opinion which might feel out of place, or maybe pulling you down of not doing things to the next level, You should always remember to have your focus, have the focus on your vision, have the focus on your dreams. Whatever you're trying to achieve, you are the best person to know that. And till the time you achieve that, don't stop. That's what you have to remember, and that's what kept me going.
Right. So now moving further, as you have your aviation experience, has that experience brought anything in, anything to help you towards building your brand, the brand Waterburger?
Of course, I mean, it's not just aviation. I would like to tell everybody that no matter what profession you are in, you might be doing something which is totally off your entrepreneurial journey or the business that you're trying to set up. But your skills will help you in every way when you're starting up a business. There is no skill which will not help you in setting up a business. A guy who might have a lot of experience into probably running a transport agency will also know how logistics work. Even that would help. So it doesn't matter what stream you're running into, your skills will always help scaling up your business. And same for me. For people who don't understand aviation, who are not from the aviation background, for the life of a pilot is very different from any other job outside. So we have these odd hours of working, we have these unscheduled trips, we have these trips which might be very short, which might be very long, but the core focus of the job is to maintain discipline. So all these days, technology has taken a leap in advancement. So most of the journeys are planned electronically. Computers are in control. They give you all the feedback. What a pilot is there for is to make sure that the machine is doing what you want it to do. So you are basically as a backup primarily. So if everything is going well, it's a simple task. But if something goes wrong, you're supposed to take charge and recover from it. That's what the training for a pilot is. So, if you look at that, you are trained to sit inside an airplane. A usual cost of an airplane these days, the bigger jets that we fly, is over 500 crores. So, that expensive machine in the hands of one guy who has a co pilot along to help him, but he also has a full team around him. So, you are the centerpiece in all the interaction. You are talking to the ground staff, you're talking to the security, you're talking to ATC, you're talking to your passengers, you're talking to your cabin crew, and you are the link between everybody. So if ground staff has a message for that flight, it passes through you and then you decide what to do. So you are just acting as the CEO of an organization. That's precisely what you do as a center of peace in an organization. So you know how to make your teams perform better, how to extract best out of them. So for me, if I'm in a critical scenario or in a dangerous situation or maybe in an emergency, the prerogative lies on me that I pull out the best of my cabin crew, the best of my co pilot, the best of the ground staff, take the ATC's example and pull out the maximum knowledge or information I can from them and use every resource to the last bit. That's what I'm trained for. And if I apply the same principle to my work as a business person, it's the same. I mean, I would want to pull up every team in my business to the best of their capacity. I know how to do that very well. And second is that I've been trained to organize everything into the form of a flow. So that's again something which is very, very helpful in a business. I've been trained to organize everything into a list, into checklists, into emergencies. So when we have an emergency, you know that you panic, you lose your focus. We are trained to keep that in check, have the focus on the main thing, which is safety of the airplane. Go to a checklist, revert to basics, follow steps one by one. Don't rely on your own, probably some lost focus or some other thing you're noticing at the moment. So just rely on your knowledge, rely on what the book says, rely on your training, and follow the steps one by one and execute the entire checklist and come out of the situation. So if you understand the business, it's the same thing. I am trained to handle an emergency in very few seconds or probably in very few minutes. But in a business, you have time. So stress level is very low. If I am trained to handle something in seconds and I'm getting hours or days here, of course my stress levels will be very low. But the core operation remains the same. I do the same thing in my business. If I have an emergency, if I have a situation, I would revert back to basics, pull out a checklist, follow the steps one by one, see what I'm supposed to do, what does the standard say, what does the statistics say, what does the market say, follow the same sequence one by one and come out of that situation. Third is use of technology. So in the last couple of years, probably last 10 years, a decade, aviation has really evolved in terms of technology. And being a very expensive and a very, I would say, safety related affair, technology always reaches aviation first in the market. So we adapted all the systems that we had in airlines and aviation as a part of our journey also. So we have these LMS platforms for staff training where they have electronic modules to log in, understand what courses they have to go through. We have a statistical input into which staff has gone under what training, what courses they have completed, and how much time. So there's a lot of things that we've adapted from aviation in terms of technology, also using checklists, using store opening checklist, using SaaS-based platforms for having a structure of what is being done when. So technology, training, and of course handling of emergencies. These were the three primary principles I picked up from aviation.
Right. Thank you so much. Moving further, as an entrepreneur, when you had set up your business, you were getting a lot of good feedback, good response from the customers. When did you understand was the right time to scale up, and how entrepreneurs generally should understand when it is the time to first sustain the business for a time period, or and when we should take up the risk or take up the challenge to scale up?
See, I would see this question very differently. For me, a person who's starting up a business needs to first have a vision. So I would just go slightly off my journey, and if I'm trying to open an electronic store, for example, if my vision is I want to have 2,000 square feet showrooms all over India, I would have that vision on day one, and I'll plan my journey accordingly from day one. Saying that I open a small shop in a small town, 400 square feet, with some items, and I become a hit by chance, and then I use that money to expand, is a different journey. That's not the journey I've done. So you need to have your visions very clear. Expanding by chance and expanding with planning are two different aspects of business. So what we did was a complete planned expansion. So if you look at it, Waterburger had its trademarks and registrations done well before we opened our first store. If you see the store today, or if you see our first outlet, the theme, color theme, designing, everything is on the same page, on the same lines. We've modified and made it better a little bit, but the color schemes, the basic design principles are the same. So the scalability was taken into fact as a planning stage, even at the first store. So what we did, we planned everything in advance. So we had that vision that we have to make this a brand, as a scalable brand. We have to build something which we can easily replicate. Now my success or failure was dependent on the fact whether I'm able to achieve this or not. It was not dependent on the fact whether my first restaurant runs or not. So the vision was much larger. It's just like, if you're starting up a business while you're constructing the shop, it is not end of your journey. The end of the journey is when you actually open the shop. So for me, that opening moment was when I actually start scaling. So my first restaurant's success or failure would not have decided whether I'm going to scale or not. I would have improvised, I would have changed things, I would have added new products, change the current products, probably change prices, do some marketing, whatever was required to make it run. Because my vision was not running one restaurant, the vision was running 100 plus restaurant chain. So we started that from day one. We had our contracts accordingly, we had our products accordingly. Every recipe was made in a way where it can be easily replicated across cities. If I'm opening one store in Srinagar and one in Kanyakumari, I should still be able to serve the same product, with the same recipe, with the same kind of principles that we have in a central store in Noida.
Right. So, apart from this, there is this one very common question that we hear from our readers and viewers, and it is to understand how differently the life treats you when you are an entrepreneur or when you are employed working for a company. As per your experience, what do you think? What is the difference, or how the difference in life comes forward, or how you should respond to that kind of difference?
See, of course, it's going to be a very quite a different journey. For me, it's been both, and doing both together. So for me, it's a different walk. And for a lot of people I know who have done the same thing, who have a business and who have a job, and they handle both of them together, it's a different walk. But otherwise, if you look at it, a job is a regular 9 to 5 job is one very planned. You know your days off. You know what days you're not working. A lot of jobs don't have the provision of carrying work at home. Like my job specifically, once my airplane engines are switched off, I've turned off the airplane and I get off the airplane, my job is done. There is nothing I can come back home and do. I mean, what would I do from home? So there's no work from home kind of a thing. I don't carry my work home. Once I've switched off, my brain is switched off with my work aspect. Now I'm completely in a different mode and I can do what I want. So similarly, other jobs might have that work carry work home concept or not. So you can do better planning in your life. You know what days you can go out with friends. You know what time you're getting off from the office, so evenings you can plan better. With an entrepreneur, these things have a big question mark. Although there might be some benefits also. The pros being that you can take an off when you want. So if I want to go on a vacation after 3 days, I'll wind up my work in the next 2 days, and next third day I'm gone. But for a person who's in a regular job, he has to depend on a proper leave concept to actually take a leave and go. And for people like me who are doing both, it becomes very complicated. So when I'm done with my job and I have a free time, I have to push that time into my business. So I have to plan very well. So the key element to everybody should be time management, which is a very, very basic thing that you should start working on if you really want to do something in life. 24 hours might not be the same for everybody, which is what I tell everyone. 24 hours is the time that we see on the clock, but what you do in those 24 hours actually defines how many minutes you've had in them. So it's very important you utilize every minute in a way where you're not wasting time. Start clubbing tasks together. Start, utilizing dead time. Like for me, I use all my travel time for phone talks or phone calls. So if I'm traveling to the airport, it's an hour's journey. I would not waste that time just sitting in the cab and waiting to get to the airport. I'll schedule all my calls in that time and finish all my phone calls while I'm in the car. So there are things like these. I mean, just plan your day better, do a better time management, and both lives are very good. They have their own pros and their own cons. For people who are doing both together, they need to excel in time management. And yes, you can achieve what you want.
Right. And apart from that, as we understand that there are a lot of in a lot of areas we have to strategize, we have to plan to make things work, make to have even the scaling and expansion from the very start of the ideation stage, from the very ideation stage. But as we know, we are amidst a global pandemic. So when
Mhm.
such kind of challenges occur, or how should we get back? How should we revive our business? Especially for if you can share through your experience in this pandemic, how you have survived and revived your own brand.
See, first of all, you must understand that something like a pandemic is not in your hands, and it's not just for you, it's for everybody. It's not that your structure has collapsed and everybody else is selling. It is we all are in the same boat. So, that is the first thing that people need to understand before being discouraged or before feeling that the market has gone down or what will I do. It's for everybody. I mean, it's not just for you, and everybody needs to plan, the way ahead. So, that is number one. Two, a pandemic is just, or a situation like this, not just a pandemic. This can be anywhere. This can be a global recession. This can be some other problem in the market. So all of these things, they are just a blip in what you've planned in your journey. Uh, a perfect example would be that if I look at it 20 years from now, I would have been in the business for about 25 years. Of these 25 years, the pandemic took away 3 years of my journey. That's less than 10%. I still own the remaining 90 plus percentage in my hand. So I take this as a rest time, as a time when you can evolve, and as a time when you can innovate, which is very, very important. So these are the times when you should look up to your operational costs, to better planning, to better structure. So like we had a lot of issues where we wanted to improvise, but the problem was it's a running business. We run our restaurants, most of them, till 4 o'clock in the morning. So you don't really have time to stop, fix something, and restart. You can't adapt a stop and go method. You have to improvise everything while the system is running. The pandemic gave us a chance to use a stop and go opportunity. So the stores which were closed because of pandemic, we could actually do the stop and go approach, put the staff back on the clean slate, retrain them on certain provisions, bring down our operational cost, introduce a lot of tech. So I know that every business who's done this, when they emerge after the pandemic, they'll be a much better brand, operationally much more secure. Their costs are going to be lower, profit margins are going to be higher. So I see this as just a back to school day where we are forced to use the best of our abilities to restructure our businesses in a way where they do better later. And this has happened with everybody, whether they like it or not. Anybody might be hating the time, but what they're not realizing is that this certain gap of 2.5 3 months or 2.5 3 years, it does not matter. This entire time is going to push you to the best of your abilities, whether it is as an individual, as a workforce, or as a company. It is going to push you to your best of abilities. Once you finish this, you will be doing things much better and the same scale.
Right. That is very, very insightful. Thank you so much. Just one last question.
Yeah.
So, if we have this, if you get a chance to start all this again, start over everything, becoming a pilot and starting your business, starting Whataburger, what will be the changes or amendments you will do, or will you make it just same?
I think it'll just be same, but I'll just start early because I believe that I could have done this 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 5 years before I started, to be correct. But I just took time to understand that I can do this along with the job. The primary hurdle was believing in myself. I mean, I took time to understand that yes, this is doable. This is something I can pull out or I can pull through. And it's the same for, I mean, in every scenario. I mean, I'm going to do this exactly as I've done it, just maybe a couple of years earlier so that I could be here much before.
Right. Thank you so much. So, is there anything you would like to add, or should we start off with a quick Q&A from audience?
No, I think pretty much everything is covered. I'm just my 2 cents to everybody is that don't lose hope in this pandemic. This is just something which is going to restructure you into a better person, into a better organization, into a more efficient employee, into a more efficient staff, into a more efficient business owner, whatever the way is. And this is just, I mean, 20, 30 years down the line, you won't even remember we had a time something like this. So, as 2008 recession in US, everybody has forgotten about it today. They still remember it as a learning lesson, but that doesn't create anything much in their lives today. So it's just that this is just a training session for us. These 2 years are going to reform everything in the business industry, and we must look at it that way.
Right. So thank you so much once again. Now we will start off with our Q&A session, and we have received some questions from our viewers across the platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and yeah. So we will start off with our first question.
Yeah.
The first is, what are the major do's and don'ts when it comes to bootstrapping and stepping up the initial business?
Okay, so the first do would be you have to plan your budget very well. Uh, it's a different story when you are funded and you have a budget done by somebody else for you, or you have a funding backup. But when you're doing something bootstrap, it is very important you lay down your steps very clearly, so you know what your vision is. Plan a runway for yourself. So, considering if you're starting up a restaurant, I would plan a runway for at least 12 months. Considering things might go up, things might go down, I need to run the show for at least 12 months. It takes 6 to 7 months at least for you to become a brand which is scalable, or a restaurant which is recognized by the public. So take a runway. It depends on entirely on what business you're choosing. According to that runway, put a sustainability plan, make a financial plan, and then go ahead with your setup. So do a financial planning which is in a way giving you lead time for at least 12 months after you start. And a major no would be wasting your funds. I mean, I see people, they are starting a business, but they would spend on manpower which is not really required at that time. So when you have a business where you are launching it, it should be in your head. If you have to spend a majority of your stake on manpower who's thinking for you, then at that point I think that is something very wrong. You can pull through very well if you have the ability to do it yourself, and it will also help you in your recurrent costs. So planning in terms of finances, in terms of manpower, is very, very important.
Thank you so much. So the next question we will have is, in terms of investors, what is your approach of perspective on acquiring significant backing?
So the approach to somebody putting an investment would be, of course, somebody who can not just give a financial backup to you, but also who can give you an insight into the industry, some hand holding, a better future, or a better vision of things. So it is not just funds who can make you grow. It is also some hand holding which can make you grow very well. Funds are something which you can arrange sooner or later, but somebody who can give you a better insight into the industry which you've not seen yet, which you've not reached yet, is a very, very big breakthrough. So it's very important that people you are doing it with, or people who are helping you out in this, they should understand that this is what you're looking for. So don't I personally believe that Just funds are not important. A vision into the industry or vision in your brand is also important. A person who sees you as something who can become something very big, and they help you in getting to that spot and not just give you money to scale.
Right. Thank you. The next question is, how did you bridge the divide in terms of professional jumps to this sector?
Well, I believe there is no divide. Divide is what we create in terms of degrees and courses and diplomas. Although they are very helpful, I'm not saying that. A guy who's an MBA would at any point of time know much more than me in terms of insights into a business with paperwork and with analytics and statistics. But having said that, it does not stop me from saying that I'm not capable of doing it. So the best way to explain this is that you have to make the jump first to understand how deep the trench is. So unless you start making those small jumps, you'll never be able to come and reach and come to a realization that now you have to add something to your ability. So this is what even I did. There were times when I've educated myself. I don't need a degree to explain myself in a business. I'm not doing a job, but I can certainly educate myself. So that is the aspect that I have used. I might not have probably a degree into food management, but I have a lot of diploma and certificate courses. I've done a lot of reading on the internet. I keep updating myself in what is happening in the industry. So being completely updated is one aspect which is very important when you're trying to make a jump from a professional industry into something which is oriented into business and entrepreneurship.
Right, that is a very profound perspective. Thank you. The next question is from our viewer on LinkedIn. How do
Mhm.
you manage your supply chain?
So it is very important that when you're scaling into a brand which has stores all over the country and even planning to go international, it is very important that all your products are sourced from a single point. So this gives a lot of benefit. One being that all your stores use the same product. You have a complete insight into what kind of substance or what kind of product the franchise is using. What is your monthly output into things? You can collaborate that with the sales and get an idea of what kind of future you have ahead, and of course crack down on prices. So if you are doing a single point purchase and single point sale, then you can really negotiate with all the manufacturers. So we tied up with a brilliant organization, AdCount Technologies, which also runs a software company called Supply Note, and we were really helped by their entire team to set up a central supply chain. Wat-A-Burger was one of the first companies to do this as a bootstrapped organization, and now we have a warehouse which is in Delhi. Very soon we'll be starting a warehouse in the south for all the expansion into Tamil Nadu and Kerala. And we have a central supply chain management efficiently managed through a software called Supply Note. So they give us an insight into what kind of usage we have into every product. They give us a better pricing. They give us the room to negotiate with the manufacturers, source at a single point, and then supply from there with a central supply chain system.
Thank you. The next question is from a viewer on Twitter, and it is a very interesting question. If you close your eyes, what is the first thing you see? Sky or
Correct.
food, which can be a
I
burger?
see myself eating a burger inside a flight. That's something which you still won't get, by the way, because I don't think there's any airline who's serving burgers in their options of food. But yeah, very soon we plan to venture into something where we can supply these into aircrafts.
Right. Thank you. So the next question is, what made you think fast food was the right move for a startup business?
So I answered this partially in the initial part of the video. Uh, the QSR industry is extremely growing. I mean, it's growing at a very rapid pace, but that's statistics. If you look at otherwise also by just the things which are around us, people are on the move. They're on the move all the time. So if you see everything which is quick, which is responsive, and where you don't have to waste much time, is picking up very fast. Whether it's calling for a cab, whether it's booking up a rider to send something like a courier, whether it's something where you have some kind of therapy, everybody wants it to be quick and they want it to be efficient in terms of time, because everybody is now managing their time very well. So similarly, a quick service restaurant, QSR, is something which is going to excel in times to come. And I believe we have still not achieved the potential which the Indian market has, which is why we are now exploring into tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where the aspect of QSR is still slightly different. people see fast food as a restaurant only. They don't really have the need to get to a food spot which is serving quick. Whereas in primary tier one cities, they actually need food to be served quick because they are less in time. So for a guy who's driving to his office, or in the office, they have a lunch break for 30 minutes. They want to go downstairs, go to a joint, grab a pickup or food item, and come back and join their shift. So for people like those, they are short in time, so they want something which is served quick. So this is what made me a foray into it. That we should develop a model which should be efficiently serving food to everybody. And secondly, I saw that the majority stake in this department was taken by all Western brands. So I see India as a very potent country, as a very potential country, and we've done everything which has so far been surpassing the Western outputs. So why not have our own QSR chain? Why not have a brand which is completely made in India from ground scratch up and scale that to a level where it gives a tough competition to all the Western brands? Why just adapt something from the West and give it a footprint in India?
Right, thank you. So, the next question is from LinkedIn. Any plans to venture outside India?
Yes, of course. As we speak, I am speaking with a friend of mine who also happens to be a pilot and entrepreneur. He's running a successful chain of hotels in London, and we are planning to set up a store together in Scotland, and that will be the first Whataburger store outside India. If the licensing and everything pulls through well, we already have a supply chain system where we can make a provision to supply all the unique sauces that Whataburger uses to any country outside. We have a setup to replicate our recipes outside, starting from beverages to burgers to wraps to sandwiches to everything. So all of this is already on the cards. UK being the first country we want to enter, parts of Scotland, and also Australia is on the cards. We're talking to somebody for a master franchise there, and some parts of UAE and Qatar are also on the blocks.
All right, thank you so much. So, one last question is: do you want to burst any myths that our viewers, entrepreneurs, or aspiring entrepreneurs would have regarding entrepreneurship?
Well, I think one major myth is that you need to either have a family business to start something, or you need to have a degree into starting a business. I've seen these as very common points when people talk about setting up a business, but it's not true. A guy coming from a background of completely service-based industry, or guy coming from a background of probably school teachers, they also can have that IQ or that quotient to excel in business. It's not something which is very different from doing something else, but it just needs a different insight into things. So if that is your interest, go for it. Don't wait for people to actually certify you to be capable of running a business. You don't need that certification. Entrepreneurship is something which comes to you from within. So if you think you can run a small business also, you should start, because that small business will actually train you for running a larger show. So this is the biggest myth I've seen, that you need a degree or a qualification or a family background to actually step into business. Or some people say that I'm not made for it. No, no, I've never seen this. No, so there's everything you do for the first time in life. So if you really want to take a step, you should take it now.
Thank you. So, we have received many more questions. So, with your permission, if we can take one more question.
Yes, definitely take all of them.
Okay. So, we have this question: your take on the impact of technology in business. How much dependency should a business have on technology?
Well, see, technology is efficiently replacing manpower requirement in one sense, to some extent, in all the businesses. And at the same time that it does this efficiently, you should not completely rely on it for replacing your manpower, because a human element asset is something which a machine will never be able to replace. When I say never, what I mean is a lot of leap years ahead from now, when you actually have machines who can replace humans. But for now, for at least my lifetime, I don't think we'll have machines who can replace human element inside a business. So, considering my particular case, or considering Whataburger, technology has really taken a good show. We've replaced a lot of quality checks through technology. We've replaced a lot of area manager teams through technology. What we're using now is a SaaS-based checklist through a platform where all the store opening checklists, all the store closing checklists are done digitally. These are processes which were done earlier through messaging apps like WhatsApp, getting pictures from the store, calling up stores, doing it manually. So a guy was involved for 2 hours for doing an opening checklist, which is now done in minutes on an automated platform. So technology is really taking up even simpler tasks like billing. The POS systems have been redesigning that, or making it more efficient for years now, where all the orders that come through an online platform, you just zip through your system and you have a KOT printed out. So this has been happening for a very long time. We've just moved to a new platform, which is a QR code based ordering system, where we will have in-car dining, we will have a modular drive-through, or I would say a virtual drive-through, where you can just scan, place an order, reach the restaurant, and pick up your food, just all by scanning a QR code and making everything online, like see your menu, place your order, make your payment, everything. So all of this is really helping a business scale up. My costs are very much controlled compared to what I would have to spend if I would not have the use of technology. So it's taking a big leap now in the last couple of years in the restaurant industry, and I think it's going to be the same for the next couple of years also.
Thank you. So the next question is again from LinkedIn. What is the USP of Whataburger?
So USP of Whataburger is always the taste. Although we have a lot of products which are entry level items. When I say entry level, what I mean is pocket friendly range or something which is competitive in terms of prices. But we still have some unique sauce which will give it the flavor which cannot be replicated. So most of our sauces, most of our ingredients are made in a central supply facility, in a central industry, central factory, where those products are not available outside for any other vendor. So that gives us uniqueness, and that gives us that taste which makes Whataburger unique. The other thing is, of course, the fusion concept, where we fuse Indian flavors into a Western product, which is a burger. So we've just launched 6 new products which have a lot of Indian variants also. Like we have a fantastic kadhai paneer burger. When you bite into it, you'll just taste kadhai paneer inside a bun. So all of these sauces are made through a central facility so that they cannot be any changes in recipe, and we have a standardization across the platform. And also they're not available publicly to everybody who's sourcing them. So there is some part of uniqueness also.
Right. Thank you so much. So this closes off our Q&A sessions as well. There are more questions which are similar to the questions which have been answered during the Q&A session or during the interview part. So we request the viewers to please rewatch the entire episode to get all your answers. And thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session, such an interesting interview.
Thank you, Karan. Thanks a lot. See you, everyone.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone. And we will now be closing off the session, and we will see you next week with another session, another interview, and another entrepreneur. Thank you, and have a good day.